Hey, everybody. Scott Fischer here with Options for Senior Living. And I welcome you back to the show. The podcast is Don't Let Haboob Hit You in the Face. And so I explain this with the beginning of each one of the shows and the episodes that so many of you may be listening to us for the first time. And well, heck, and you don't even know what a haboob is or what I'm talking about. And so my guest and I have both lived in the valley, in the desert for many, many years here in greater Phoenix area. And over my shoulder, you might see what looks like a giant dust cloud. And that is exactly what it is. Last summer, we all went to work that morning and weren't really expecting that to be waiting for us on the drive home. A haboob is a sudden violent dust storm that sweeps across the desert. And here in the great Southwest Phoenix area, we see these on a pretty regular basis. And so that cloud was 65 miles wide. It was a mile high and it wiped out the city on an afternoon as people were trying to get home from work. Behind it was insane winds and insane rain. And you're thinking, how did that happen? How did that catch people off guard? And it's the season for it. It's July and August here in the desert. That's when it happens. But too often we leave for work and we see the clouds in the sky and we're not paying much of attention to it. We may not take precautions and have our windshield wiper blades cleaned up real well or whatever, or replaced. And then we need it when it's in a crisis. And you guys, I've been working with families for over 25 years in the space where we support and help families through the aging journey for loved ones. And so often they are in the season and they miss the storm. They don't see it coming. There's situations, there's issues, there's changes that are happening in the lives of our loved ones, and we're not paying attention, or we're ignoring it, or we're denying it, or we're allowing pushback from our loved ones. And so I spend my weeks talking to professionals who have had various perspectives on this issue and this topic. And I've invited my buddy John Angelo to join us here today to share his thoughts and perspectives. John is the founder and the owner of the Angelo Real Estate Group. And man, I'm super glad to talk to you this morning and would love to get your perspective. So welcome, and how you doing today?
Awesome, man. Scott, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here and look forward to, just working through some of the questions that you have and some of the issues that we run across that are very familiar to you. And, we're dealing, it's like the opposite side of a coin, right? You're dealing with it on one side, we're dealing with it on the other side. So very familiar with, the aging process and how that can put stress on families and individuals.
Yeah, let me just, you've seen some of these storms before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Were you
Yeah,
driving
I've
home in
been
the
in,
video?
been in. Oh yeah, we live off the Carefree Highway, and boy, I'll tell you, they can come at you from different different ways. And oh yeah, they're crazy.
Let me throw some numbers at you because you guys, this is why I want to talk to John, and his expertise is in handling real estate transactions and people that are in transition. You know, John, there's 160,000 plus 80-year-olds already in Maricopa County.
Wow.
I don't know how many homeowners that equates to, but 160,000, there's 1 million people already over the age of 65 years old. How much real estate are we talking about is going to need to change hands in the next 20 years? Insane or no, all right?
And I don't have quite those numbers, but I'll give you an idea. We work in a big networking group that's a national group. The guy that runs that, Brian Buffini, always talks about that transfer of wealth, and it's in the trillions of dollars over the next 10 to 15 years. The
Yeah.
biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the world is going to happen. And we have, we're kind of bullseye with the population that we have here, a lot different than other cities that might skew a little bit younger. We've always had a little bit of a higher demographic age-wise. So you're exactly right. We're dealing with it all the time.
And the reason I wanted to get Brian's perspective on this, and there are a lot of professions that touch this population, these families in transition. So either the adult kids, guys our age, Brian, that have our parents that are dealing with it, or our parents themselves. There's a lot of unregulated. There's even licensed people like yourself. I'm unlicensed. You're licensed for what you do. But there's a lot of people that are really transactional focused. I say it that way. They're transactional focused. Not always have the client's needs or desires or priorities top of mind, but they're into the deal, getting it done. And then there's outcome driven people that care about the quality of the work and the perspective, and that believe that the next referral from those people is how we get paid, right? It's like how we do our thing. Talk to me about how much real estate gets done in a very transactional way. You're super impressive in your resume goes before you that people just feel they get the best experience with you because I believe in my heart that that outcome is so critical to you.
Absolutely. We when a new agent will come to us and ask us about getting into the business and how does it work, we really say you're right. It's one realtors transact in one of two ways. They're either transactional or they're relational.
Mhm.
And I would say that probably 90% fall in the relational category, but sometimes they don't know they're relational. That's the difference. When you know that you're a relational agent and you build your business around that, that's what you're talking about. How, 99% of our business comes from referrals and from people that we know here. And again, when we're in that larger national group, we do so much business in the market and out of the market with other agents that we've known for the past 20 years since we've been in that marketing and networking group. So you're absolutely right. We just had an 81-year-old woman that was living here. She was the only one left in her family, and she had a couple of younger siblings and children that lived in New Jersey. And I got that referral from the agent that I know in New Jersey, and we did that deal, and they were super happy. And I've got to keep two people happy. Essentially, I've got to keep the referring agent happy, and I've got to do a good enough job for the clients themselves so that gets back, because I don't want to ever cut off that referral source.
My business is, as you know, is helping families locate the right senior living. So I need you in my world because sometimes I'm the first one on the scene. Families deciding, you know what, dad's not safe anymore at home. We have to do something, right? And there's a piece of real estate or the home that he's living in has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Oftentimes that even is the largest source of assets for paying for the care. I have I've always said there's three parts to my harmony. There's the family, of course, to treat well and serve well and walk them through and get them a good outcome. Like you, most of my business has always come from a professional referral. So I've got a referral source to serve well and to keep in the loop all the time and honor them. And finally, I work with my partners at senior living so that they get a good match, a good fit for their community or their assisted living home. And so it's a win-win-win scenario when we do our thing right. I say all that to say in this relational concept that you're talking about, service and foregoing your own priorities is a really big deal, right?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is that think about how you receive service in other industries. Part of it's due to a process and procedures that business has in place. And that's how we're also structured. So you get that good service because we're doing it again and again and again, for the most part, in a pretty predictable way, fashion, timeline. There are times when stuff gets out of sync a little bit. That's okay. That's where we kind of all have to sometimes come together and say, wait a minute, this is a little bit out of, timing, process, procedure. How do we want to handle it? Who do we want to have handle it? But you're exactly right. You want to get them, you want to duplicate that experience as often as you can in the same fashion, because we get better at it. And it's received a lot better from the client when they're getting that as well.
Yeah. You guys, because of this vast number of people that are going to need help, John, I work in an unlicensed and in a largely unregulated space. We have a trade association that establishes best practices and there's a code of ethics that goes along with that, but nobody's obligated to do anything, right?
Sure.
There's very little accountability. And so when people are just so driven by the opportunity to cash in, I'm just so concerned. And I know that there was back in what, 2005, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
everybody wanted to be a realtor. Everybody
Yeah.
jumped into the pool to flip houses on the weekend, right? And you had the professionals get diluted with the hobbyists and the riffraff.
Sure.
Well, my business is full of that. And so part of talking to you is, of course, is to maybe highlight for our listeners, from your perspective, what really elevates someone who's relational, outcome driven, service minded, John? What kind of questions should people ask or know about the real estate professional if they need something?
Absolutely. And this isn't even just for us, but for anybody that you would hire, and regardless of, what profession you're trying to accomplish. But yes, absolutely interview them. I always say that So much of what we do, there's some technical parts to it. Absolutely. There is negotiation, there is communication. My biggest thing is do I like you? Do you like me? Like when you sit down and we have a conversation, I mean, we're going to go into business together, right? And
Right.
not only that, but we're going to go into business with, if you're selling a property, we're going to go into business with that other buyer and that other agent. So if you feel like, hey, these folks at the Angelo Group, hey, I really like them. They communicated well. They did what they were going to say. It's not rocket science. And there are a lot of great agents like us out here like that. You want to
Yeah.
just be respect the other person, return the phone calls, return the emails, just be straight. And sometimes being straight is delivering the tough news. Have to do another price adjustment. The home's not selling. Home isn't in great condition. We're getting constant feedback. You're seeing that feedback. We're not filtering that feedback. So I think the biggest part of it really is the communication between us
Mhm.
and whomever we're dealing with. And just, I always say, like, when you see my name pop up on your phone or vice versa, if I want to pick it up, I know that's a good match.
Yeah, right, right. That's a good point. How much in today's society does email like how much communication has changed since the day we just picked up the landline and called each other when we were in high school, man?
It's so funny. Every once in a while, you'll get to that point where Amy and I will just be sitting around and we're like, how did people do business 30 or 40 years ago? Not only is it so rapid, but it's the volume of what you can do now compared to, I mean, when we just missed the old school real estate style where we were literally in the transition when we first started back in 2002 of getting away from the books of how that's how you would go and figure out where the listings were. It was just at that point where cell phones were getting better, the internet was getting better, and things were migrating online. And we were just at that transition point. And boy, I'll tell you, I just go, we had the old school maps and to open up the maps and connect
You had
and
Your Thomas
Thompson map?
map guy.
Yes,
Yeah, Thomas maps.
absolutely, but
Yeah.
geez, but yeah, amazing how much more efficient we are today.
M My first iPhone, I think it was the iPhone 3, and my daughter showed me how she could put my contacts, all the business cards that I carried around in 2 giant binders on my front of 'cause I got into the business helping people like this in 2003, same thing, right? And
Yeah,
so I went from all the business cards, a couple hundred of them, into my phone, and then you could touch the address. It mapped it for you. You didn't have to
sure.
map quest and print it before you leave, or you didn't have
Yeah.
to have your Thomas guide.
Oh, yeah,
People that my kids, I'll say, well, they're asking me where something is. I'll say, well, just give me the address. And they'll say 8645 East Oak. I go, oh, that's, Granite Reef and
brief.
between McDowell and whatever. And they go,
Hey,
how do you know that? I'll go, man, I've driven almost 1,000,000 miles around this city in 25
yes,
years. So you know
yes.
the numbering system, you know that the odds and the evens are on which side of the
What's
street.
up? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't mean to digress.
No, but
The number of people that flooded my business, the number of people that flooded into your business, of course, there's good people in that flood. But again, man, someone that knows and have driven the miles and navigated a lot of challenging situations. See, because these families in transition, John, there's stress, there's relational stress, there's grief happening, right? And this is where the rubber really meets the road in this world is that if you've got that skill set, that set of patience, that communication skills, then you navigate and help families feel nurtured through what could be a really hard situation. They're selling the family home. Mom and dad have to move. Mom died suddenly, and you've got to now dispose of the family property for 60 years where all the kids grew up. I mean, there's a lot. Can you think of a story or any time like that where maybe that was front and center for you in a journey you took with a family?
well, I'll tell you, I've had a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think back on, I just had one recently where we grew up with the kids and the parents, and we knew them they knew us
Mhm,
when we were kids. Right?
mhm.
And sometimes it's also weighs on us because we know the people as well. It's not like every single client that comes to us. So many of our clients are family and friends, if you will, right? But we just had one where, we were really close. Actually, I was a little closer with the parents than I was with the kids because my parents had a friend group that ran around with these folks and they were just phenomenal people, super funny, great to be hanging out with, Irish people from Boston. I mean, you can't have any much more fun on, especially a day like today. They were great, right? And the father passed away, and the mother was still living in a house in Sun City, and the daughter was back in St. Louis. And she and I would start having these conversations about her mom, and she's like, I just don't think she's going to make it. Fortunately, we had some other friends out here, other mutual friends that helped her get her out of the house, get her into that final assisted living and hospice and all of that. But it took a toll on us. That's a family friend that died, and now we're dealing with the children, and you're like, man, I just want to make sure that they get everything they need out of this transaction and help them along. And it wasn't easy. We've talked a lot, Scott, about the house wasn't in great condition. So, we're helping that person in St. Louis, the daughter, fix up the house, get things ready to go, figure out how to get, all the services that you need, right? Are we going to sell stuff? Are we going to donate stuff? All of that. But that was just a transaction that we did in the last couple of months that, when that was over, I felt like there was a weight lifted off my chest that I know that, that group of people that are no longer here would have said, John did a great job for our daughter, got the house sold, did it efficiently, and helped take that stress off of her. So that one was kind of really fresh in my mind because we just kind of just went through it.
Yeah. Um, our listeners, John and I got reconnected. He actually graduated a couple years behind me. We went to the same high school in the west side of town, Cactus High School. And
Yeah.
one of my buddies from my class, actually two of my buddies last year, both lost parents. Both of them lost their dad. I lost my mom in 2025. One of those guys, his parents bought a house in the early 70s. They're over off of 67th Avenue, just south of Thunderbird. They're on those acre plots. It's on
Oh
the
yeah.
west side of 67th. It's in Peoria. Probably bought that house for 20 grand or something. I think his dad told me once before, years ago, he said, God, if I had had any wisdom, I'd have bought two of these side by side,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're on acre lots with horse property, the whole thing. So, the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And he lost his dad. His dad was 90 something. His mom and dad were married 70 years. No, mom's still living in the house and she's still
Wow.
independent, man. That house became a refuge for me because I was a new kid at that time, John. My parents moved to Phoenix, hated it, hated my family, hated my world, didn't want to live here and wanted to go back to Texas. And yet I became very close to that buddy of mine and his parents, and that home was very welcoming. They all grew up there. When that time comes that they're going to have to sell that house, there's going to be some heart strings getting plugged. Don't you know
Mhm.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. And in some of those instances, and we try and we ask the questions and you never know, but sometimes those homes end up staying in the family. And one of the children or one of the grandchildren, you never know. Those are the questions that we explore. Like, should this house remain in the family? Does it make sense? How are things positioned, in your will or your trust or that kind of stuff? And there are times when people will just continue, living there and it's great. And you talk
Yeah.
about generational, you could have 3, 4, maybe 5 generations of people that know that house, which sometimes that does happen.
That could very well be part of their story. I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't. I'm going to see him. We're going to go to Texas to go to a rock and roll show in San Antonio. So we're going to be and catch up. We're going to see. He lives in Florida now. His sister lives in Tucson. And so, but
Yeah.
there are grandkids from, obviously Mark's and his sister have grandkids. Maybe the house does stay in the family. I
Yeah.
hadn't even thought about it till you said that.
Mhm.
And I think it takes a special professional to ask the right questions of the family. Does this even make sense? I mean, but
Yeah.
but people are very connected. They were raised in those homes, and
Yeah.
this requires a tender touch a lot of times.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
We have little sayings that we use in the business when we're talking amongst ourselves, but sometimes it kind of leaks out. But we always say, we go as fast or as slow as the person needs to go. Sometimes it's slow. You get into a situation where you've got somebody that's living in a house, but then it goes into assisted living. Sometimes that house is not, we're not selling that house right now. That's a conversation for a year or two down the road. So, there are times when we're moving fast and there's times when we're moving slow, but that's okay as long as that dialogue is open and as long as we figure out, hey, this is our strategy, or what tactics are we going to use here for this? That's okay.
how do families ascertain whether what they're hearing from a realtor is truth, authentic, trustworthy, and whether it is paper mache, if you know what I'm saying, where it's just words. How do people get that confirmation? Where should they be asking to get confirmation if they're interviewing you or another real estate professional?
Sure. I would think that. So one, some of the natural, things that you would think about. Well, how long have you been in the business? Right?
Mhm.
Did you start a year ago? How long have you been in the business? That's number one question, just so you understand, what kind of knowledge do these folks have, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really important too, like what the team structure looks like. So, not that an individual realtor is bad, but my wife and I are in this together. She actually started a little bit before me. I always tell people I'm working for her. This has been we're in our 24th year, right? That piece of it for not just aging families, but our general population of buyers and sellers, they really like that there is a man and a woman involved because it doesn't feel like you're ever getting ganged up on, right? And 90% of the time, I'm jibing with the man and vice versa. But every once in a while, the woman and I might be in sync, or Amy and the man might be in sync. But it's really important, I think, to have that to make sure that both sides feel listened to and that they can bounce some ideas off of that. I think support is really good, with a phenomenal, Compass. We have the Angelo Group, but Compass is the overarching brokerage there, which is really big and, national. And it's great. We've got resources all over the country. If somebody's moving from one place to another or coming from some place to here, we have all of that. I think those are all really important things to know about who you're hiring.
Right.
And I also think too, there's a little bit of we're kind of Scott, you're in the same boat, but we're kind of in the sweet spot of age where a 30 something might really resonate. Amy's 8 years younger than, so I'm 58, she's 50. So 35-year-olds resonate with her and
Mhm.
85-year-olds can kind of resonate with me. We call it our barbell, right? We kind of have both feet. I've got a foot kind of in my age and older. She's got her foot in her age and younger. So that
Yeah.
piece of it too, the communication part to me is such a big piece of all of this because for the most part, and you said it, this is going to be the biggest asset that most people buy or sell in their lifetime, right? And at the end, it's the last thing that they do. So having that communication, I think, is really, really important. You can always go on sites and you can go to the Department of Real Estate or the Arizona Association of Realtors and look and see if there's any violations against an agent. Most agents don't have violations, but they're there, and most agents that have more than one are no longer in business. So that's really good. And, sometimes it's just asking around, hey, who have you had a
Yeah.
good relationship with? Have you done multiple deals with a particular agent or group? And when was the last time you did that?
Yeah. I think, having been a home buyer and seller, I've had phenomenal experiences. Somebody that's patient and proactive and worked with me on lots of different, I tend to be a little, I'm thinking about this and I'll think about that. And I want somebody to go with me on how I'm thinking about things. And I've
Yeah.
had some people that have tried to put me on their path and it didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
And so I think that experience of being able to go with people, like I said, for those of you that might be having to navigate these waters for your parents or for your own self, in terms of downsizing or whatever your health issues might be or whatever your interests are with your primary residence, having someone who's got some seasoning and some maturity and can go with you through some of those changes. I just know that when I lost my mom, we didn't have a house to sell, but emotionally, we're still reverberating with the emotionality of it, my brothers and I. And man, it's just a lot. So you don't need a realtor that's complicating things, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing too is that, it's also who we know collectively because,
Mm,
there can be 20 different people touching that transaction, title and
yeah,
escrow and, appraisers. And then you talk about, landscapers and plumbers and all that, having, grown up here since, being here since 1977 and then going through all of this, we just have all of those resources that when people say, I need this, I've had clients that have had parents die that we had to pick the funeral home. They didn't know where they were from Pennsylvania. They didn't know. They were like, hey, we really don't know. So I helped them pick the funeral home to bury their
yeah,
parent. It's just
yeah,
that kind of stuff is just, you know, you don't think about it, but it's out there.
Well, and when we face it because we walk in the door, right, and then they've got to sell the house. Dad's got to move to assisted living. Maybe there was a hip fracture. There's, some of those homes are tri-level. I lived in one on
Yeah.
51st Avenue in Thunderbird was a tri-level deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You couldn't get out of the basement if you had a
Yeah.
fractured hip or whatever. And so now you need move managers. You need somebody to fix the house up or get it prepared to sell. You need maybe a moving company. Maybe you need some cash out of that house
Yeah.
up front or some
Yeah.
kind of programs. Any programs that you know of or suggestions if families are needing the capital or some equity from the house in advance of the sale to do the
Y-
care coordination for mom and
Absolutely.
dad?
We there's an old saying, and I took this from Will Gadara, who wrote phenomenal book, Unreasonable Hospitality. He was a number one. His restaurant was a number one restaurant in the world in New York City, and I love the line. And he says, it's not one size fits all; it's one size fits one. So when that patron would come in and sit down, it wasn't like, "Hey, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. This is unique." That's how we are. Sometimes it's a very straightforward transaction and sometimes it's complicated, but we have almost everything that you see on television. We'll buy your home. We'll keep you in your home. We'll give you the cash. We have all of those versions of all that as well, tailored to that particular person. So if
Mm,
somebody says, "Hey, I have a lot of equity or I own a home free and clear. I need $25,000 right now to get to Tucson because that's where my kids are, but I can't do that." Right? The only way I think I can do that is sell the house, but I can't really sell the house. I need the money in the next week. That's not
yeah.
going to happen. How do we do it? We have, investors that'll come in and give structure that so that those people can get the money, get out, go to Tucson. Investor can buy the house. We can sell the house. I mean, it really depends on, again, just listening and understanding what they need. We pretty much have, I haven't been stumped in that yet. So let's just say that we've been able to find out to put them in the right spot. And sometimes it's not with me. That's the other part of it too. Sometimes, hey, we realize you need to be dealing with the investor because they have the cash, they have the funds, they have the ability, they have the timing. So we're going to pull back. We're not going to sell that. You're not going to list the home on the multiple listing service. Let's help you guys work through that investor, get the money, move to Tucson. They'll buy the house. I deal with the investor later down the road, but my interface there might be done because it just makes more sense to them to be dealing directly with the investor.
God, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Before, this has been fantastic, and I so
Yeah.
appreciate this, and I mean that sincerely. I do want to kind of ask you one more thing, if you
Sure.
would. Think about if you're a family that's in these spaces, or you can see it coming, your loved ones are happening, or you're a professional and you have these folks in your world on a regular basis.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? How do you help them get prepared? What do you wish they would know so that we can help give them something concrete to maybe avoid this from slamming into their boat?
It's interesting, and I'll use me as an example. First off, and it doesn't matter who they are, getting out in front of it, number one. That's number one. If you see it coming, don't delay. You mentioned it earlier, Scott. You guys get out in front, start talking to somebody, right? Number one, it's gonna make you feel better. Most people, when they start early, realize, okay, I still have all the variables in front of me, right? You don't want to wait too long where things are starting to get by you and we're starting to try to backtrack. That's too late. The quicker you can get out there, the better. The other part of it too is, and I would say this, and we're going through this with family members, boy, I'll tell you, if there is, or if there are wills and trusts in place, I know it's not always the fun things to talk about, but even if you have aging parents, boy, to have those, even if it's at the 11th hour or that stuff gets done, yeah, I see you're shaking your head. It helps you a lot, helps us a lot. And it takes a lot of stress off the individuals that are making the decisions. So it's great when you have an aging parent that is willing to do that, put a will and a trust in place, do all the proper things with finances, with their health, who's going to make the medical decisions, who's going to make the monetary decisions. Boy, if you can have that documentation in place, even if they haven't done it, if they're 85 and you see it coming and they're willing to do that, it's work out of the gate work, but it's work that will save you tons of time and headache at the
and,
end.
and potential litigation. I had a couple of attorneys
Absolutely.
on at different times, and when those documents aren't done, particularly the financial stuff, then you've got conservatorships that might have to be assigned and go to court, and the kids are fighting over. Like Parents, hear us. And if you're the
Yes.
adult kids, hear us. Take a deep breath, have the conversation with those parents in love earlier than later, frequently, probably, so that you can make sure. And if you haven't had a financial power of attorney looked at in a number of years, the banks really insist on those being looked at and revised every couple of years for validity. Otherwise, even if you have it executed and it's 15 years old, John, you have a hard time selling a house or banks trusting all that without going to
You
court.
bring up a great point, and you know what's interesting about this is I've had many situations where we're working on the parents, but the kids realize we don't have it.
Yeah.
So right, and it's nice because all of a sudden now you've got two different parts of the family moving through it, sometimes simultaneous, or sometimes they get the mom and dad done, then they do it. But it's really great because their eyes get open to it. And you're right, I didn't know all of this. We just went through. Amy and I did our first will and trust when we got married. It'll be 25 years at the end of this month, and I hadn't really touched it since. And just went back and had it all redone about 6 months ago. I
Yeah.
mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought we were covered here, here, and here. Not. Banking laws have changed in 25 years. Stuff that was valid then, not valid now. All of that. We're equally in the same spot. We need to do this stuff too.
Yeah. No, we just redid ours as well, and we stay on it every few years. We go back
Yeah.
and see our estate planner to just revise things, make sure the
Yep.
relationships are all intact, everything is still
Beneficiaries are
as we need.
there. You still want
Yep.
this kid, the kid's not 18 who's going to watch them, or it's all of that. It's
All of
so,
that.
yeah, it's really good.
All of that. Thank you. That's really,
Yeah.
really wise counsel for everybody. You guys, these conversations are critical. The demographics are so top heavy in terms of the aging population of our valley and really United States. But for those of you that are in the greater Phoenix area, hear us, please. These storms come out of nowhere. Implore people, please call us before the crisis. We can help you get some things in place, have those hard conversations. Options for Senior Living has operated here in the Valley since 2003. I was a nurse for many, many years prior to that. So for 40 years, I've been walking families through some of the most difficult times of their lives. And so we're a family business. My wife and I, our two daughters, John, we cover the entire Valley, helping people navigate the complexities of long-term care. Our services are free to families. We are paid and compensated by relationship with hundreds and hundreds of senior living operators. So we have a strong knowledge of those receiving facilities, where to steer clear of, and who's doing a great job for families. And so, I believe in my heart of hearts, because I've been living it, that it's our turn now as the adult kids. It's our turn now
Yeah.
to care for those who love and cared for us and help them get through this very challenging time in their lives. And
Yeah.
so, John, I can't do what I do without great partners and great professional friends like you and like so many other financial advisors and attorneys and home care and in-home care providers and the like. And so thank you for sharing your time with me and for us this morning. It's really been a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely. And I would say this too, just kind of at the end, if you have a parent or a loved one that's not in Phoenix and they're in Tampa or they're in
Mm,
Cleveland or whatever, you can reach out to us, reach out to
yeah,
me, and help. I have those resources, these realtor resources all over the country between the Brian Buffini network that we're in and then with Compass. Don't feel like you're on an island. We can help you
okay,
guys with those resources in other places to get them here, right? Or to get them from here to
yeah,
those other places.
yeah.
We've got those resources as well. So don't feel
I
like you're working by yourself.
Thank you for saying that. I had to bring my mom here from Ohio to spend the last 10 years of her life. So that's a real thing, y'all, that
Sure.
we have.
Oh,
The kids are here. Sometimes the parents are here and the kids are gone. We're here and we have to
yeah,
bring our parents to us. So
for sure.
thanks. Thank you for saying that. John, how do people get a hold of you? Website, phone number, any of that kind of stuff you want to share?
Yeah, website, it's the Angelo Group, pretty straightforward. If, you wanna call, I mean, my number's area code 602-616-1455. You can probably I was at a networking event for a bunch of Grand Canyon University students a couple of weeks ago, and you can just go on LinkedIn or whatever and just type in
Yeah.
John Angelo. I mean, like, you'll
You'll
recognize me,
find
I'm
us.
there. Yeah, pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so, and before I get away, I want to make sure I remind everybody that I do this every show episode. Last year, we launched a private Facebook group here in town, John. It's called the Aging Parent Tribe. The Aging Parent Tribe now has several hundred members. These members are adult kids, they're caregivers. their family members who are experiencing the challenges of all this. So the tribe is there, protected and safe and private, so that they can bring their stories, get support, get resources. They can cry, they can share, and we have a lot of engagement, interaction, and a lot of connection in there. And so, again, to help people not feel on it like they're on an island, they're not going to be blasted by a few of the professionals that are in there and sold anything. We're there to
Yeah.
give tips, we'll give structure, and we're there to support you in your journey, provide that safe support. So the Aging
Sure.
Parent Tribe on Facebook, if you are inclined, come join us and be a part of that group. I think you'll be glad that you did. So to my audience, thank you for joining me again. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm with John Angelo, the Angelo Group. Join me again next time, and be a part of this conversation as we do our very best to equip and prepare families for the aging journey. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.